Why is game selection so important in poker? Whether you're an online player or a live poker player, this video is going to be for you to get your game selection optimized. How's it going, YouTube? My name is Andreas and welcome back to How to Become a Poker Pro. In this video series, I'm going to walk you through all the different elements that you need to take care of to become a professional poker player. The first thing when it comes to game selection is to find your main game. You have to have a game where you're clearly much better than your opponents. You have an edge. And once you subtract the rake, you still have to be profitable for a quite decent margin to make a decent hourly. Now, in order to determine your hourly at a table, you have to ask yourself where the money is coming from. Who's the recreational player who is basically losing all the money? Who are the bad regulars who are losing money to you at a decent amount per hour so that after rake you can still win money at the tables? Let's put an example. Let's say a recreational player sits down at a 5-10 game with a deep stack and he loses 1,000 an hour. That's a pretty big number. There's not many people who lose at that rate in this world. However, it's certainly possible if he's super drunk and he's just spewing around. Now that would mean for the other 8 players that everyone is making $125 an hour just because of that one player. And that before rake, of course. Once you subtract rake, maybe everyone's making 100 an hour. The next thing you have to account for are the expenses. When you're staying at the hotel casino, that can mean something like $100 a night, and you have to deduct that from your poker hourly. If you're making 30 an hour and you're playing for 8 hours, that means your $30 an hour hourly goes down to $17.50. And now you also have to deduct the drinks that you're taking and also the food that you're consuming at the casino. If you, however, are an online player, these expenses go out of the way and it can be quite an attractive option for those reasons. The competition is going to be tougher than in live games, but you don't have to deal with all those expenses, and you can also reach a higher skill cap at some point in your career and then go back to live poker. What is next applies to both live and online poker. Your position at the table really matters. Especially in live poker, you can right away see who is sitting at the tables, and you have to select your seat very carefully. The best thing you can have is 2 very tight players on your left that are not going to bother you playing positioning very well against you, and having the very bad players on your right so you can capitalize on their mistakes the most by having position on them in the most situations in the game. Having position is definitely something that's very important. When you have very aggressive regulars also on your left, it can hurt your win rate a lot because you can cold call much less as they're squeezing much more often, understanding that's a very profitable way to take advantage of someone who tries to cold call against the fish very loosely. Another thing is becoming a regular at a certain game. Whether that is online or in live poker doesn't matter. It's fairly important, in my opinion, to have an informational advantage when you're a regular at the tables. When you know the dynamics between most of the players, you can adjust your strategy in a way that helps you to even increase your EV. For example, if you know that some regulars are going to squeeze a lot once you cold call against the fish, going back to that example, you know that you sometimes also have to mix in some stronger hands in order to then come over the top one more time and re-raise and also have your range sometimes uncapped and not just, try to go after the weak player too much. What is also often forgotten in live and online poker is that there are seasons. In some times of the year, people have more money and you want to play as much as possible on those days and game select, in this way. For example, towards the end of the year, people usually get extra salaries and then they have much more money to lose on poker. The same goes for the end of the month and also when people go on holidays, also, for example, during the World Series of Poker, people go there to lose their money. They sometimes don't know it, but they do that in the end. So the action is much better for you. And you have to take advantage of that and put in your efforts in those times. At this point, I also want to mention the online series. Because there's some regulars that just show up for online series. So it doesn't necessarily mean that during those series, for example, Scoop on PokerStars, that the action is much softer. There might be people saving their energy, so to speak, just for those series, and that the regular players ratio to the recreational players is actually much worse. Also, these series sometimes take long hours. Sometimes, depending on where you live, you have to play until 5 a.m. and that basically scares off recreational players because they're going to have to work the next day. So the regular to recreational ratio could be much worse, and therefore in online poker it's maybe not even as much of a thing to see for look for the seasons. But there's some days like New Year, which you probably don't want to play. But you know, if you want to have to make the money, maybe you want to take a sacrifice. Something else that I want to talk about in this video is how naturally you're interested into this poker game, in your main game. Now, not all of the players that I've talked with agree on this, but I've definitely talked with some professional players that also told me and agree with me that, you know, the main game, if it's really boring to you, even if you make money with it, can be quite energy draining, especially when it comes to live poker. If you're not really seeing any additional value besides making the money at these poker tables, if you don't improve your poker game, then in the end, you're basically trading your time for money. And if you're valuing your time more than the money, if you rather would spend that time reading something or improving your poker game or just trying to figure out what you want else than just playing poker, then you will go less and less to those venues and just try to grind out some money. Unless you really need the money because you have expenses to, you know, pay for. However, if you don't, you will see that your motivation to go to the main game will change and you will have to find a different game. If you want to know more about how to become a professional poker player, hit that notification bell down here to get some updates on when I make a new video on how to become a poker pro. I want to thank you guys for watching this video. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet and you want to have some updates on this series. Thanks for watching.